All right, I'm going to call this meeting to order. Roll call.
McKnight.
Here.
Myers.
Here.
Roa.
Here.
Vogel.
Here.
Kinder.
Here. Pledge of allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do you have any public comments on agenda items?
No, Your Honor.
So notice of executive session meetings.
Your Honor, an executive session was held on March 23rd, 2022 to discuss litigation.
Approve the minutes for March 23rd.
Motion.
I'll second.
Discussion? Roll call.
McKnight.
Aye.
Myers.
Aye.
Roa.
Aye.
Vogel.
Aye.
Kinder.
Aye. Communications.
Your Honor, we did receive one communication from Glenn Tuttle. He is writing to request to address council at their next meeting on the critical shortage of EMS workers by informing about both the state grant availability to reduce property taxes for volunteer EMS and firefighter and increase incentives to have people to volunteer and help save local lives. He says the program is very complex and we require voluntary grant writing that could be solicited from local sources, and he looks forward to having a conversation with council that would not require further deficit spending.
Manager's report.
Thank you. So Gary Johnson is here to talk about the next portion of the zoning ordinance. Gary.
Thanks, boss. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about the districts and uses tonight. This shouldn't be nearly as controversial as the last time we talked about things, but there are some changes that we need to go over. You do have the PowerPoints in front of you. On the top is a zoning map. It's actually different. It's from the last time. It's a change that reflects some discussions we had with the Planning Commission last month about the Heide Cooper Holland House, which we'll get into during the next discussion at the next meeting. So just that should take the place of the map that's already in your ordinance that you also can't read because it's so small. So we will get larger maps at some point, but we just it's not in the budget right now. I'll have to bug Tim about it. So talking about the districts. The main changes we have with the districts have to do with name changes. Okay. And so you'll have on your this district name / designation slide, and I'll just go through these real quick. R2 multiple family residential will change to the MU1 limited mixed use. The T1 existing T1 transitional will change to the proposed MU2 neighborhood mixed use. The current B1 central business will change to the proposed MU3 downtown mixed use. The B2 general business district will change to the general business manufacturing. I1 institutional core, which is essentially Diamond Park, would change to Diamond Park Heritage. The I2 institutional medical and the B3 flexible business, I'll get into that where those are a little bit later, will be morphed into the IS special institutional. And the I3 special institutional and I4 educational will change to one into the IC campus institutional. And I'll get into that in a little more detail. We're going to eliminate the R3 special purpose residential, which was a remnant of a larger R3. It's mainly where Asbury Manor Mobile Home Park is. That was the R3. That is going to be changed entirely to industrial over there. Part of it was already industrial, and the proposal is to just essentially make it all industrial. It's already in a floodplain, so you wouldn't be able to expand or create a new mobile home park over there anyway, so it really doesn't have any impact on it from a zoning perspective. That's why we're changing to industrial. We would retain the R1 single-family residential unchanged, and the EDC, which is the Economic Development Corridor Industrial Zone, would also stay mainly the same, so it's a net reduction of 3 districts to a total of 9. So moving on to the actual use changes that we're talking about. Again, the R2 to MU1. The main changes you'll see on the left there, the left column is the R2, current uses, okay, and that's going to be the same through the rest of the slides. On the right, the 3 boxes on the right are the proposed uses in the MU1. The main changes here have to do, you'll see in the principal uses, and this is going to be mimicked in a couple other ones. In the principal uses in the MU1, you'll see bakery, barber/salon, cafe, coffee shop, community center, community gardens, and drugstores, laundry, dry cleaning, greengrocer, and tailor seamstress are all essentially neighborhood commercial uses. Okay, those are all new to that district that would allow neighborhood scale uses, or commercial uses. And that's similar for a couple of the other mixed uses as well. That's the main difference going from an R2 to an M1, MU1, I'm sorry. It also changes a couple of ways that these uses are approved. One goes from a permitted use, which is a use approved by me, to a special exception use, which is a use approved by the zoning hearing board. So that's the main difference between the R2 and the MU1. You can kind of review it a little more in detail on your own. But that's the main difference here between those two districts designations. Okay. Any questions on that one specifically? All right. Moving on for the transitional to the mixed use 2. Again, all of those other uses that I mentioned before, those neighborhood commercial uses are contained in this as well. That's again is the main difference here, going from the transitional to a mixed use. So this is really more of like you have a little bit more commercial uses in it than just residential. That's why it's currently called transitional, because it could go either way. It's going to go more commercial, more residential. That's the main change here as well, adding those neighborhood scale uses to the MU2. Moving on to the next one, this is the B1, the Central Business District. This is what you would think of the downtown. It's proposed to change to the MU3. Not a lot of changes here between the two. It does add, specifically add community centers, community gardens, hotels, motels. Whoops, sorry. All right, change the slide. It does, so again, it adds community centers, community gardens, motels, and hotels as permitted uses that aren't currently in the Central Business District as a use. Not a whole lot of other changes there. Okay.
Gary, do you have a question?
Yep.
What does the P, SE, and C stand for?
Right, so the P means a permitted use, which is a use that's permitted by right, and essentially I review it as zoning administrator. I look at it, say, does it meet all the standards for setbacks, for parking, for lighting, for signage, whatever applies to it. And so then if it does, then I say, yes, I issue the permit to do the use. If it's a special exception, that's a really bad term. I like to say this a lot. It's neither special nor an exception, but we call it special exception. And what it is essentially it's a use that is permitted, subject to a hearing before the zoning hearing board, which is an independent body appointed by council to hear these types of things. It also, there's usually standards that go with that as well, that the applicant has to show, I will meet these standards in this way. If they do that to the satisfaction of the zoning hearing board, then they shall grant that approval to do that. It's not something I can do. And the C means conditional use, which is a much more accurate term. And this actually goes, it's the same, pretty much the same process as the other, but it goes to council. You would actually act as judges in that one instead of the zoning hearing board. It also includes a review and recommendation from the city planning commission as well. So first goes to the planning commission, they take a look at it, does it make sense? And then it comes to council for decision. So that's what those three uses mean. There are a few changes in the designations as you go through. You'll see some, for example, upper floor residential use in the B1 right now is approved by special exception only, going to the zoning hearing board. And in the proposed, it's basically used by right, doesn't have to go to the zoning hearing board anymore. I can approve it as an upper floor residential use if it meets the standards.
Gary, who approves variances, you or the zoning hearing board?
Zoning hearing board.
So if I had a property that required a special use and it also required a variance, is that one hearing or two?
One, because they both go to the zoning hearing board. If it were a conditional use and a variance, it would go to the zoning hearing board and then to council. So there'd be two hearings.
I had a quick question.
Yep.
From before,
Yep.
I didn't catch up. Some of the M1, the R2 to the MU1,
Yep.
I just was wondering, so a lot of these things can be held out of a home, right? Like that's the point of a multi-use residential, or?
No.
So somebody could build a building in a residential area and use it as like a drugstore or a laundromat or
That's correct.
something like that?
That's
Okay.
correct.
I just, for some reason, I was thinking, because a lot of these things, you know, that we're mentioning could be out of your home,
Or-
right? I just wasn't sure about,
Correct, or it can be converted into, take an existing dwelling, you can convert it into that use as well.
okay.
And there's also what's called a home business, which you can operate, you know, like a lawyer, an accountant,
Yeah.
often, we have that now.
Yeah.
Where you can operate, you can live there and have your office there. That's another one, it's a business in a residential district, but that's also your home.
I-
It gets complicated.
Yeah, no, I was just, because when we said residential, I was thinking that that would be all out of homes, but you could, okay.
Yep.
And then quickly again, this is a couple ones back, but when we mentioned the Asbury Manor,
Yep.
and you said industrial, right? Because they can't expand and you're not gonna be able to put anything on that floodplain, right? Like, you can't build a home on the floodplain, you can't, I mean, like, you couldn't build a home in Asbury Manor now, like a real home.
Correct, yeah, and they couldn't expand Asbury Manor. They can replace the homes that are there now with newer homes, as long
Okay.
as they build them, you know, elevate them and anchor them properly. They just can't expand the mobile home park, so.
Okay, so they couldn't, so if there's 25 mobile homes there, they couldn't put 26?
Correct.
And they would all have to conform to the same, you know, be in the same places and all of that?
Yes.
Could they? Okay, sorry, I
Yep,
just,
yep.
as we mentioned it, I was just wondering what the
Good question.
And that's true now, and would remain true?
That's true anyway, because it's in a floodplain,
Right.
and so they can't do it anyway. So changing the zoning designation doesn't change anything for them.
Gary, the zoning ordinance talks about professional offices and excludes medical dental, and the definitions of medical dental exclude veterinary facilities. But the bottom line is, there is nowhere in this ordinance that permits a veterinary hospital or a dog daycare center, which we have, or pet grooming. So how do we address those issues? They already exist.
If they're already existing, of course, they're grandfathered. But
If
for
someone else
example,
wants to come in and start new ones.
there's two routes. First of all, the one for Debbie's Daycare, and then the Humane Society's vet clinic. Both of those were approved by variance by the zoning hearing board. But the way that you could do it, by not seeking a variance, you could go by special exception in the EDC, which is the industrial area. Any use that's not specifically named in the ordinance is allowed in the EDC by special exception by approval of the zoning hearing board.
Okay. Definition of professional offices. As I said, it excludes medical, dental, and veterinary, but I'm thinking that maybe it'd be a good idea to include specifically financial services, investment advisory services, and things like photography studios. Because those are professional. They're not really specifically referred to, and it might save a lot of time and expense now to address the definition so that in the future we don't have those issues coming up to us.
Okay.
Oh, also, financial institutions, it appears in the zoning ordinance, but it's not defined. They define financial establishment, which is different, that's more like a check cashing service. So maybe we ought to include a definition of financial institutions in our glossary.
All right. Any other questions so far? Okay. Moving on, the B2, general business to general business manufacturing. The B2 is essentially Park Avenue south of Pine Street, and then you have most of North Street is also B2, so that's the area you want to be thinking of with this. There's a few changes in this that are proposed in the district, and just as a quick aside, we'll be talking about the map next time, the actual changes to the zoning map. There are some lines, it's not a straight up change from one district name to another. There are some proposed boundary changes for districts. This is one of them, the B2 is proposed to be shrunk a little bit in certain areas. But I just want to mention that, so it's not just a straight like for like name change. There are going to be some district line changes as well. So the main changes here have to do with, there's basically several additions to the uses that are permitted. That would be community center to community gardens. Drugstores are specifically defined and permitted here. You typically included those as a retail use, not specifically as a drugstore. It also includes gymnasium, home business, light manufacturing, limited retail, limited storage, printing services, urban farm, and taxi terminals. We're being hopeful with taxi terminals, but so that's the main changes from a B2. It's a lot of additions essentially. There's one change, removal of a shopping center as a conditional use, but that's the only real removal from the district. Any questions on the B2 so far?
Can you talk about what makes things limited? Limited retail, limited restaurant, limited storage?
Right, the limited restaurant and limited retail were both written for the Diamond, actually, for the I-1 to try to encourage some uses of some otherwise idle properties. It mainly limits the size, it limits the sign size and type of lighting, hours of operation, parking, and deliveries with both of those, the limited retail and the limited restaurant. The limited storage, it's not quite a self-storage facility. It's more to allow, again, to allow some use of otherwise maybe vacant buildings in a way that wouldn't impact their neighbors. I'm trying to think of a good example.
Like there's garages that people like rent out a space in a garage.
Exactly.
In these back alleys and
Exactly.
like that would be.
Like Noble drywall up on Washington, where it's that garage used.
So, yeah, something like that where maybe it doesn't quite meet the standard of an office, but it's limited storage that you don't see anything outside, it's just kind of sitting there, and people are using it for something, and we wouldn't want to make that illegal just because, just for that. So that's mainly what limited storage is conceived to be. We don't have that right now as a use.
Gary, going back momentarily to MU1, well, it's actually MU1, MU2, and GB. 3 of the 4 funeral homes in Meadville are in an MU1 district, the remaining ones in an MU2. And funeral homes are meticulously maintained, and the 4 of them in Meadville pay somewhere between $80,000 and $100,000 a year in various property taxes. Yet the proposed ordinance, funeral homes are not allowed in the MU1 district under any condition, even though if they'd be an appropriate use in that district. They are permitted in MU2, but again, by special exception. It seems that this ordinance is zoning out some very good businesses. I know that these are existing non-conforming uses, but if we had someone who wanted to expand, every time you want to expand, you're going to have a special hearing by special exception or variance, are you not? Or conditional.
Special exception or
Special
variance.
exception.
Yep.
Where it seems if you change the use now, you're going to avoid a lot of time and expense both for the city and for the proposed users. And also divides, I'm going to get myself, you cannot have a crematory, although at least one funeral home in Meadville has a crematory.
Yeah, there's a couple. Those are there's 3 that I can think of. 2 of those were permitted as an accessory use to the funeral home, so it wouldn't have to be listed as a principal use.
Okay.
I can't speak to Meisner, but the other 2 were approved as accessory uses.
All right.
For whatever that's worth. I mean, we can include that, of course, as a standalone principal use if we wanted to do that.
Okay. I guess I'm just confused. Drugstores are permitted by special exception and funeral homes aren't. It just doesn't really seem consistent.
And I can include all of these questions and notes and more of like I can bring them together as we move forward and talk, so council can talk about it and say, do this is something we want to do.
Great.
Any other questions on that? Okay, moving on then to I-1 versus Diamond Park Heritage. This is again the Diamond area, Diamond Park. The only change to this is it removes schools. from the Diamond Park area. District. That's pretty much the only change to that. Any questions on that?
Would that include technical schools?
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
So I know that we do allow, like, and that's been in the relatively recent past, allowing limited restaurant and retail on the Diamond. Was that in our zoning ordinance, or was that a?
It is in the zoning ordinance.
I'm not, because I'm.
It's not,
am I
you're not gonna
seeing
see it
on the
on your,
table? Yeah.
you won't, and I should have said that before. We've been looking to update the zoning ordinance for roughly 15 years since I've been here. And we've written several changes into it, and we've made several minor changes. But anticipating a more comprehensive update, we hesitated to print books in a certain way. And Katie, I'm not sure why it's not on this. But it wouldn't be in some books because we haven't printed the new ordinance in books. It's more of like kind of like we inserted in a few places as we updated the ordinance. But it should be on the website. I'm not sure why it's not there.
So the code's on the books, but it's just
Right.
not.
It's legal, but it's not in
the
front of you
side-by-side
here. I'm
that
not
we've
sure
got.
exactly why that's not there. I'll have to look into that and see.
So this cleans that up a little bit.
It does, it will.
My question was about the schools, like how they, like so a church could have a school in a basement because it's not a primary use. You know
If
how I
it's-
think in some schools, I think that.
If it's related to the church, yes, not as its own. So for example, when, and this one, I personally don't feel really strongly one way or the other about whether they should or shouldn't be in here, schools, and that's just my 2 cents. But when creating landscapes was in the Episcopal Church, that wasn't related directly to the church, it was its own entity that rented space there, that would not be permitted under this, because it's its own principal use, because it's not like a Sunday school. So think of it that way. So that's something you could think about, is it something we want to do, or should we allow schools in there? Is that if that's something we should allow, then of course that's up to council to make that decision to change what's being proposed.
And when we're talking about the Diamond Park Heritage, we're just talking about literally right around the Diamond, right? Because like the Y is right there and it has a preschool, right? So we're literally just talking about
It's
this little.
a little more than that.
Yeah, I was just wondering, just because the Y and then the, like, Rainbow Connection was right down the street, right?
Jim brought his data. Oh, they're outdated, Jim.
Yeah, but this part isn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, YM is,
Is it part of?
yeah.
Yeah.
YW is not. Well,
Right.
the FCCA is not.
And the Y, so I mean, obviously that would be grandfathered in, right, because they're there, but if somebody wanted to do something like that, it would just not be possible, even with special exception or anything of that nature.
Correct, and so that's why council would want to think about it now and say, do we want to allow that, so you don't have to worry about that in the
Right.
future, if that's
Okay.
something you want to do.
Is Stone, is their school technically on South Main, or is it on the Diamond? What school are we talking about? Stone United.
It's right in the middle of the building.
That's another Diamond adjacent.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's another one, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and again, that's something that, the council could consider and say, no, we want a lot of schools on the Diamond. and-
considering there's so many churches right around the Diamond.
Any other on the Diamond? Okay. So moving on to the I-2 medical versus, and it's just a comparison, I-2 again is going to be morphed into the IS, the institutional special. The I-2 are essentially medical center campuses, both Grove and Liberty, as well as essentially Cora Clark Park. It is included in the I-2 as well. So the changes there, you're looking at additions of community gardens, hotels, motels, limited restaurants, limited retail, printing services, short-term rentals, upper floor residential use, and urban farms. There's a few tweaks as to how some of these are approved as well, as far as going from permitted to special exception. But those are most of the changes that are in there, that are going in there.
When you say short-term rentals, what's that, like, what does that mean?
Airbnb, home away. Yeah, those
But
types.
only in the, was that in any of the other mixed use or in any of the other ones?
Not yet.
Okay.
It is in a couple different use, a couple different areas. And short-term rentals are actually allowed by conditional use. It would come to council for any of those to ever be approved. And I think there's like 8 or 9 standards that they would need to meet as well.
Okay,
So,
right on.
any other questions on that? All right. So the other one that's going into the IS is the B3 flexible business. And this is really basically the footprint of what used to be Alden Physical Therapy up at Arch and Alden, I'm sorry. It used to be larger. It used to actually go across where the old Talon 5 on the hill was, which is now Calamar. That used to be B3 until it was changed to R2 a few years back to accommodate the Calamar senior housing apartments up there. So really it's just basically a block at this point, this B3. And so we're proposing to incorporate that into the institutional special. And again, it's the same types of uses on the principal uses here. I'm not going to get into too much detail on that. But a lot of the same added uses. You can see that the B3 was very limited in what was permitted because essentially it was an industrial area in the middle of a residential area. So they wanted to kind of limit what was going on there. So we're just going to incorporate that into the IS, add these other similar uses that we had for the rest of the IS and go from there. Any questions on that? Whoops. Okay. So the I3 and the I4, so I3 is essentially the Westbury campus. It's special institutional. And the I4, that's going to be the next slide, but I'll talk about it because they're going to be incorporated into the IC. The I4 is essentially Allegheny College campuses, as well as the Meadville area middle school, Meadville area senior high, and then Shady Brook Park, which connects, of course, between the football field, Rainbow Dam. All of that is going to be in these areas here. So the I3, the Westbury district versus the IC, adding community gardens, fraternity houses. Not sure you're going to see a lot of those at Westbury, but because they're being incorporated into the same district as the college, that's why they're there. Adding also short-term rentals, stadiums, traditional neighborhood development, upper floor residential use, and urban farms. Traditional neighborhood development is usually it's a multi-block kind of development. Impact Meadville with the townhouses, the Kepler, and the parking garage. That was traditional neighborhood development. It was all put together as one big project essentially, and that's what a TND is. It's permitted as a larger project. Has more of a traditional feel. So those are the uses that are proposed to be added to the I3 via incorporation in the IC, which stands for campus. So these are really bigger institutional uses, Westbury College, the schools, things like that. Any questions on that?
I have some questions on that. I was doing some studying on this issue, and it's easier to put a drugstore next to Meadville High School than it is to put it downtown where the Rite Aid is. It's a permitted use in an institutional campus, or I could put it in the East End School on Walnut Street. Easier, and that doesn't make sense. Doesn't make any sense at all. A couple notes on typologies. Townhouses in MU1 are permitted, but there are no minimum lot widths, and that's page 39. MU2, minimum lot width of 20 feet and maximum height of 35 feet or 2.5 stories. But then one page later, they change it and say it's minimum 20 feet and height of 40 feet, 3 stories. And then in MU3, the same townhouse has a minimum lot width of only 15 feet and 40 feet, 3 stories. So there's a lot of inconsistency in your typologies. I brought a picture. I'm not going to try to send it. We were talking about permitted coverings, if you want to pass that. That is located across from 2nd District School. It used to be a glazed terracotta building.
Right.
It's now stone and vertical metal siding. Looks nice, but we wouldn't be able to cover it in stone or vertical metal siding under the proposed ordinance. And to compare, you can look at the two next to it that have compliant sidings and ask me which siding do you prefer. Oh, one more. Automobile sales. Down across the old Tool City Auto, whatever they call it now. That's permitted use because that is MU or GB manufacturing, I believe. But across the street, former DRS sales, they've changed the zoning and auto sales are not permitted use, even though they have both been used for auto sales, literally across the street. They haven't, they changed the zoning, and that's section 402. Oh, section 402 of the ordinance on page 70 requires that automobiles be parked 15 feet behind the property line, which would effectively make it impossible for 3 of the 4 auto dealers to maintain inventory because you'd be right against their building. You couldn't get into the building, much less get around the lot.
So real quick on those two, DRS is in a T1 right now and it would not be permitted, it isn't permitted now, it's grandfathered use. And the 15 feet is in there now as well. It's been a long-standing requirement. I think it actually mimics state law on that. And for the ones that actually have come in the last 15 years, they've all asked for and received variances to the 15-foot requirement. But I guess my point there is that those are existing rules that we can, obviously, we could change, you know, get rid of that if we felt that was necessary.
Right.
But I just want to point that out. That's how it is now. as well. Yeah.
I think the goal is to make development of the city as painless as possible and expedite it where possible, not necessarily to slow it down and cost more money.
To your earlier point about drugstores, I think that the drugstores are incorporated where they are because of institutions like Westbury, like to accommodate campuses that have drugstores essentially as part of the campus, is that?
That was included in the I-3 for Westbury, that's correct.
Okay.
And
so
now-
this just makes it uniform across those?
Because you're morphing them into one,
Sure.
they're both permitted in that district.
Okay.
It might make more sense for the, what I'll call the MASH site, to have a different category of institutional zoning. I mean, you can put a dormitory next to MASH, or you could use East End School for dormitory under the current rules, or under the proposed rules, because that is zone institutional campus. I think that it varies significantly in character from the Allegheny campus, which obviously people live and work on. So I'm thinking it might be, I don't care what you call it, institutional scholastic. Some kind of a name, just to segregate it and have different uses. I think you can actually put a restaurant up by MASH, if I'm not mistaken. And I don't know that that was really the intent of the zoning ordinance.
Teachers would love it. Yeah, I think part of the idea too is to limit the number of zones that we've got to understand and manage.
Anything else on the I-3? Okay. So the I-4 to the IC, again, it's the same use as on the right. Same types of uses, not a whole lot of difference here. I'm not going to get into too much detail on this, but this is the I-4 to the IC. As we talked about, I think we led into a little bit with Councilman Rowe's comments there. The I-4 is Allegheny College, the MASH, MAMS, Shady Brook. So. Any questions on that one there? The next one is single-family residential. There are no changes proposed for those districts at all. The next slide then is EDC. There are some changes, additional uses that are being proposed for the EDC. Some of it's cleanup, things that we probably should have had in there a long time ago, but adds taverns, bars, upper floor residential, commercial recreation, community gardens, drugstores, specifically calling out drugstores, dry cleaning, processing, actually golf courses we're adding to that. I frankly don't know why we're adding that there, but it is what it is. And we changed the designation of other uses. I referenced earlier, if a use isn't specifically listed in the ordinance, it's allowed in the EDC, Economic Development Corridor District, as a special exception. We kind of redefined that use to say other uses per approved master plan. We added that into anticipation of the French Creek Heritage District development as that progresses along. This would essentially say, okay, what are you doing? Because it's a big project, it's multiple lots, multiple parcels. It would allow that use as a holistic use approved, and that would go to council as a conditional use. So we did tweak that a little bit to anticipate that as it moves forward in the EDC. Any questions on the EDC?
Gary, in general, I don't know why I'm fixated on urban farm, but is that is a special exception across the board? Or is it not, are we not allowed to utilize that in single-family residential, the R1?
That's correct.
So there's no way somebody can urban farm if they've got a big enough lot in the R1?
Correct. Now that's,
The primary.
as a principal use, you can garden to your heart's content on your own property, of course, that's horticulture. But in the R1, yeah, those are specifically left out.
And that is because you want people living in the R1, right? Like, and that's their principal use, is just to be a home, a single-family use home.
I believe
neighborhood.
that was the intent, yes.
Okay, and when we talk about urban farming, it is like as a business, right? Like as we're making money and creating like
Yes.
this big.
It's not
okay.
like, because we specifically also define community garden as a separate.
Right, yeah, no, I saw that. And can you have a community garden in an R1?
No, it's not called out in the R1. That's proposed.
Okay, but regardless, you can still have a large garden
Absolutely.
and have your stuff, okay.
Absolutely.
Just what about the guy that does have a large garden or chickens, for example, and they just want to sell a dozen or two or something? How would that fall in?
Don't tell me about it.
Okay.
We don't have the time to worry about that kind of stuff.
All right.
Pack up your eggs, right?
Go down the street and sell them down there.
There you go.
Right?
Go to the market house.
Just wanted to know.
Yep,
Right
absolutely.
on,
Good question.
right on.
That's all I had. The next discussion, and again, I always welcome any kind of questions or comments at any time from anybody. As we move forward, as you have time to digest it. The next one, we'll be talking about the map changes. And so hopefully I'll have a bigger map that actually you can actually read. It's kind of tough. The PDFs that are on the website right now, you can zoom in really well and get down to like the lot parcel scale. So if you go back on the website and you check that out, it's a lot more user friendly than the old one was. So that's what we'll be talking about next time.
Thank you for that, Gary. It was super informative, and I really liked it, so.
Thanks.
Let you know your hard work does not go unnoticed. All right, old business?
Your Honor, we have a letter of resignation from Devin Stout on the Market Authority. Mr. Stout states he regrets to inform council that he will be resigning his position on the Meadville Market Authority as of April 30th. It has been his great honor to be a part of the authority, and he thanks council for your years of support for the Meadville Market House and for other members of the authority, past and present. And for him personally in his role there, most recently as chair of the authority.
Motion to accept resignation.
Motion?
Second.
Discussion?
Jamie and I had a chance to meet with Devin today. Shared that he has been on the authority for, he said, like over 10 years. And has been the chair for several.
Appointed in 2013.
Okay.
Oh, okay, that's what he said, he was like, I
I
wasn't
mean,
sure
some of
how
them
many.
seemed long, right? Or something. Anyway, long time, third term I think that he's in. Plans to stick around as a friend of the Market House and is excited about the direction that they're going. The Market Authority just sent over a report to council this week, so I appreciate Devin's commitment to the Market Authority. And all that he has done there as volunteer. And it was a professional, like, was sad to go, but it was because of his promotion at the Tribune that he had to step away.
Anybody else have any discussion? No? Okay, roll call.
McKnight,
Aye.
Myers.
Aye.
Roa.
Aye.
Vogel,
Aye.
Kinder.
Aye.
I'm sorry, Your Honor, this does leave 2 vacancies in the Market Authority,
Yes.
As well as one on the Planning and Zoning Commission and one on the Water Authority. We have held off on advertising because we're still trying to determine with the Planning and Zoning Commission if there might be a change there. And to preserve advertising costs, we'd like to advertise them all together.
Right on.
I'm sorry, can I just, have we heard anything back from chairs about the process?
I have only heard back from Devin and one other chair, so I can follow up to see if there is more feedback, or I can just present what I've gotten.
Okay.
I'd follow up and then,
Okay.
I mean, that's my opinion, I'm not making the decision, I'm just.
No, just for context, we reached out to chairs of our boards, authorities, and commissions for feedback on the appointment process, to see if there are changes to be made after we've had it now for a year and a half or however long it's been. Hi,
Am I allowed to ask a question?
I don't know.
Chair?
We normally don't
Okay.
have questions, otherwise it gets kind of crazy,
Okay.
but after, if that's okay.
Okay, fine.
Thanks.
That's all I have.
So, anyway, so thanks for reaching out to about that. And, yeah, okay, we can be in touch about it.
Okay.
Thank you, Katie, for
Mhm.
reaching out to everybody and seeing how that's working out for us. Okay, so then, ordinance, third and final reading?
An ordinance of the City of Meadville, Crawford County, Pennsylvania, to authorize and designate Crawford County to assign property address numbering for new city buildings and uses in accordance with standards required by the Crawford County Enhanced 911 Automatic Location Information System for the health and safety of city residents.
I also move.
Second.
Discussion?
No changes since the prior discussion on this ordinance.
Anybody have any questions or anything?
No, I'm good.
Okay, roll call.
McKnight.
Aye.
Myers.
Aye.
Roa.
Aye.
Vogel.
Aye.
Kinder.
Aye. New business.
So the first item is the April 20th city council meeting. City staff is asking that council would be willing to move it to the 21st, that Thursday at 6 p.m. There is a public hearing scheduled for a liquor license transfer at 5:30 that day that council would discuss. There's the Chamber's Diamond Awards is on the 20th, and there are various staff members and some council members who will be attending.
I just would like you to back up. The hearing is what day?
The 21st at 5:30.
So regardless, the hearing is going to be that 21st.
Correct.
So if we move the meeting to that day, we have both things.
Correct.
All right. Discussion.
That'd be amenable to it, Mayor.
Okay. Gretchen.
I have to fix some work things. I could probably make it work.
Okay.
So that would be great.
Larry?
Sure.
Okay.
I can make it work.
Okay. And I'm there, so.
Okay.
Discussion council subcommittees?
So this is just to give council an opportunity to report out what the status of their subcommittee meetings are and any updates you wanted to provide.
Does anybody have any updates on their subcommittees? Or anything they'd like to say?
Sure. Gretchen and I are each doing like independent projects. She can report on hers. I'm working on, as they call it, sources and applications of capital and trying to develop some ideas for revenue streams to present to council at some point in the future. But I'd also take this opportunity to suggest, as I said at the last meeting, that we consider disbanding the subcommittees and either going to a single person liaison or not even having liaisons and just have staff tap each and every one of us with their areas of expertise on an as-needed basis. I think that would be a more effective waste or use of time and would draw down less on resources, because I know Katie is doing a lot of work keeping minutes up, and we're spending money advertising. So my recommendation would be to disband and either have single-person liaisons or just let staff contact us each as they see fit.
Okay. Anyone else have anything to say about their subcommittee?
Yeah, I think that would be good that we could discuss this as a possibility, maybe just again for staff. I in terms of like maybe shifting or having some, I keep thinking of when you put like something to sleep for a while, just so that we aren't overburdening the staff's capacity. So I can see value in what Jim is saying, especially to focus our work and getting things done. We could maybe work better in coordination. That's the one. So, Autumn, you're having a thought that way.
Oh, no, I didn't mean to.
She's like, I'm thinking on the other, you're having another hand.
My face conveys thought. That's a problem I have. Sorry, go ahead, Gretchen.
No, that's really, yeah.
I do have fun. I'm sorry. No, Jim, I'd be amenable. I think that, I think part of what I was hopeful for when we established subcommittees was that the subcommittee could do the work of prioritizing the priorities that we've set, right? We've got like a laundry list of 20 priorities for the year or two, depending on what is a feasible timeline. And yeah, so I guess I'd want us to have some kind of conversation where we can have, if that work is not gonna happen in subcommittees, we should think about how else that can happen, so we're not working on 20 things at once and therefore nothing at once. But I'd be amenable, and then I guess is your vision then that like, would we keep, so we've added 2 meetings a month, would we keep them both? Would they become study sessions of council, both of them?
I think in past years, we have had 2 regular meetings and 4 study sessions a month. At
And
one
4
point-
study sessions
Yes.
a month?
At one point in the history of the
I
world.
don't want that, but I'll have 2. I'll do 2. We're gonna make your work easier by making 4 study sessions a month.
Like literally.
I don't know that we need,
Yeah,
I
sure.
don't know that we need.
But
4
just that
study
there's
sessions.
precedent for more than
There's
one.
precedent for more than what we
And is
have.
that in line with what you would be thinking, that we wouldn't have a
I don't think we would need to have
subcommittee?
the extra study session. I think 2 of them would be appropriate and 2 regular meetings
Yeah.
would be appropriate.
So just turn the one subcommittee meeting day into a study session. So all of council would be there each time.
Yeah.
And we work on
if we
whatever
don't have
priority.
something for that study session, it can always be canceled. But it would be advertised if necessary.
Larry, what's your thought?
I agree with Jim.
So it sounds like that's kind of what you and Gretchen are doing anyway, like you've separated your issues and, or your priorities, and you are working on them individually. I, on the other hand, do have kind of another thought, only because the housing issue has been, you know, we want to be as transparent and take in as much comment from the residents, right? Like, and I'm not sure how that would work if I was the only person or if Larry was the only person, right? Like, so I appreciate having the people come, I appreciate having the feedback, and I appreciate being able to do the work openly and you know what I mean, that type of thing. I am not opposed to, you know, each subcommittee doing it their own way, right? Like, so you guys have decided these are your priorities, so that's your subcommittee, right? Like, but the housing, I just feel like maybe, you know, having that interaction and being
Yeah, I see
open and
what you mean.
transparent, because it's such a large issue, right? Like, it is something that people want to know about. So, not that they're not gonna know about, you know what I mean, every priority. That's just how I'm kind of feeling about at least the housing subcommittee, right? There are other priorities, and we haven't, you know, touched those in the housing subcommittee, but at least what we're working on diligently right now, I think is best as transparent, out in the open as it can be.
So are you talking a liaison arrangement, or?
I was thinking, like, I like the subcommittee the way it is, for that one, right? Like, but again, I think that we could establish this in a way that works best for everyone,
Everybody.
right? So if this works best for you this way, and you've got your priorities, then the liaison subcommittee would work for that, right? But when we come to large issues that we're working through, right, I'm not sure if one person being a liaison will get it done as quickly as having those meetings, right, with everybody being able to be present and doing that, discussing in an open format. So I think maybe we've got more to discuss, right, in how we would like
There's
to.
not a reason why we couldn't do both.
That's what I was thinking.
Have just one subcommittee, the housing.
Yes, you can.
We should just do
That's,
it.
yeah, that's what I thought you were getting.
So the only issue is if you're going to convert two, so you're gonna have two study sessions, two council meetings, and then a.
Right,
Well, it sounds,
yeah.
I guess what I'm hearing is if we keep a subcommittee, and if we keep the Housing and Economic Development Subcommittee, then that fourth meeting a month
Would just
remains
be
the
that
Housing
one
and Economic
until, you know, there is an end,
So
and
not adding
then
another.
it can be converted into a study session. But I don't know, and maybe there's more to that, right? Like, that we can discuss or figure that out as comfortable as it is. But I do understand where you're coming from, and I dig that's how, you know, you feel you can do the work the best, right? And the quickest, and so.
Yeah, we have a study session coming up. Does it make sense to, can we talk about this? Or it would be a decision though?
Well, no, we're not making a decision, we're just discussing.
We're just discussing it.
So should
Yeah, we
talk
can,
about it then?
we can do that.
The only thing is that there's just that hour, so I don't know how long that,
The work.
Climate action.
Yeah, the climate action thing.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, I don't know.
No,
Are we
no,
getting
no.
somewhere?
I mean, we've all, this is
I think we know
a
that it's not
discussion.
working as it is.
Sure.
I think we can agree on that much, that it's not really working as we're currently doing it, that we need to make some kind of adjustments.
Right, and I think that
Not for
everybody.
each one,
No,
but
not
yeah,
for each
it's
one,
working
maybe.
to different
So,
degrees.
yeah, no, I dig it. I think that we should take 15 minutes at the next work session, right? Or
13.
study session,
13.
and take that 15 minutes to discuss, right? And then we can, the next meeting, we can come to that conclusion and vote on it and put that on the agenda. And
That works.
okay,
Yep.
all right.
Can we say 10 minutes?
10 minutes, not 15.
I have a very small report from the changes, hopefully, to the tax code 511C, which is a state, it's a state code, and I did reach out to PA Municipal League, and I heard from Amy Sturgis, and she clarified some things that that they're trying to push through. We're not members currently, we're kind of trying to hold off to time it, like, get some bang for our buck. But she did clarify that the 5 like key elements that they're presenting for a bill that they're hoping to bring to the floor, it would wait for the next session. She was saying how everyone's new every time. You have to, well, look here, I feel that way because I'm new, so you have to re-explain everything. So, so the first element was that municipalities can levy a full 1% of earned income tax separate from school district sharing. That's one of them. Municipalities can increase the levy, which is the cap on the LST cap tax, up to $156 per year. So, and she was stressing through all of this, how each community chooses different things, that you would want it to fit your community. A business privilege tax, which would be based on gross receipts of businesses, authorization, this is like, so you would be, this would work out with the county, so people who work in the city, some of they call it the job hosting municipality would receive some of that local income tax. I think Pittsburgh does this. And then the last thing was an employer payroll tax, which, you know, they would, again, it would be a levy. So these would be things that would be kind of like, if the state would allow more flexibility, it would allow us to move away from property tax, so.
It would give us more options.
It would give more options, yeah, so, and that was all I had. Mary Ann's gonna go to the state.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gretchen, that's awesome. Regarding the climate action plan.
Yeah.
Under the community engagement subcommittee as it exists now, I had met, Gretchen didn't come. That's not allowed. But I met with Gary and Katie, and then the climate action task force separately. So the next meeting of council is a study session on the 13th. Folks from the Climate Action Plan Task Force will be there to present the plan. That will hopefully be streamed or filmed so that the public can then view that. We can discuss at the following meeting, the 21st, and discuss and vote or vote the following meeting depending on how much time we need. And then following that, we can begin discussions about an environmental advisory council, which would be a body of a city. It would add to another authority board commission type body of the city that would be responsible for implementing the plan. So we set a timeline that hopefully works with staff. You all help me set it up. So we've set a timeline, and that's the plan for bringing Climate Action Plan Environmental Advisory Council before council. So that'll happen over the next 2 months.
All right. I guess with the housing, we've had 2 meetings. The last one was videoed, live streamed, and we're really just getting down and trying to figure out what Meadville wants, what works for us, and how to go about that. So we're in the early stages, baby stages. So and that's really it. But that was live streamed. If anybody wants to, they can go back and watch that, right? Like, if anybody has any questions. All right, moving on. Discussion, motion, letter of support for Senate Bill 1135, Whole Home Repair Act.
So I'm actually gonna turn this over to Autumn.
Sure. Thanks, Marianne. I was made aware of a bill that's circulating the state senate right now, Whole Home Repair Act. I sent a drafted letter of support to, it was included in our council packet, and then I sent an updated draft to you all today. Basically, the Whole Home Repair Act that's being proposed would allocate funds for home repairs, $50,000 grants for homeowners and loans to small landlords that would have some kind of affordability provisions to
to make habitability repairs and upgrade for energy efficiency. It would coordinate technical assistance across the many entities that currently give technical assistance for weatherization and affordability of homes. It's like hard to navigate those systems if you've ever tried to do it. And so this would help to make that a little more streamlined, and would also support workforce development, again, in home repair and weatherization. It struck me just because it ticked a lot of the boxes that I heard in the subcommittee meeting on housing and economic development. And so I was, it seemed like it would do a lot of good for Meadville, and in particular, it would kind of address some of the things that have been coming up in our conversations around housing, but would not mean that we have to foot the bill for some things that we don't necessarily have money laying around to do. Homeowner grants, loans to small landlords, like we don't have a ton of money sitting around to do that. So if it came from the state, that would be better. So anyway, so I'm kind of putting this forward for us to send our support off to Senator Brooks.
A question on them. Will these funds be required to be used for code enforcement before they can be used for improvements? Like lead abatement, asbestos abatement, and that sort of thing, which in some cases drains all the resources. Or is this specifically exempted from that?
That's a good question, Jim. I'm not sure. I mean, what's being proposed is $50,000 grant, which I would imagine allows for abatement and then some, right? So like additional repairs and weatherization. I think, like what I was reading into it, it seemed like it was trying to get at some of that, right? Like when you go to weatherize a home and you've got structural issues or health concerns, then like you can weatherize all day, but you know, or you can make little improvements, but like really you gotta
I'm just
get to the
worried
core.
about.
So I'm not sure
I'm worried
if
about
it's
you
a
spending
requirement.
$49,000 on abatements and then having $1,000 left for everything else that's needed.
Sure, yeah, no, that's a good point. I'm not sure. Yeah, it's the state's money.
Yeah.
That's okay. I'll hook you up.
And it costs us nothing?
Exactly, just a letter. That's the thought. Maybe they'll give money to our community and so we don't have to pay for it.
So can I have a motion to submit letter of support?
A motion, that's a good idea.
Second.
Okay. Any more discussion on that? Okay, roll call.
McKnight,
Aye.
Myers,
Aye.
Roa,
Aye?
Vogel,
Aye.
Kinder.
Aye. Discussion motion, Shade Tree Commission request to participate in the Crawford Gives Day 2022.
So Crawford Gives is not traditionally until August. The Shade Tree Commission, however, is reaching out now to council to request their permission, blessing to participate in Crawford Gives. Traditionally, this is for nonprofits. Because the Shade Tree Commission does not control their own finances, it's a city-controlled fund, they would need both the Crawford County Heritage Community Foundation to bless it, as well as council. The Heritage Foundation has said that they would permit if council also permits.
But this, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Would that be true, like if other authorities or boards or commit, or would like, are we limited to just allowing one?
That's a discussion you'd have to have with
With
Christian. I don't know what the answer to that would be. And we'd have to look at our side of things to see if, depending upon how the fund was established, if that's a permissible source that you could take funds from,
So
so.
it'd be case by case on our end. Okay.
Well, and the other authority would be like the MARC, right? They participate in this.
Yeah, but they have a
Or is
foundation.
it-
They do,
their
they have a
foundation, or is it-
nonprofit. The
Or like
market-
Friends of the Market could do
Yep.
it like.
I just know I gave on that for them, but I just wasn't sure how that worked.
They have a nonprofit arm, a lot of.
Okay.
Are we not a 501c3? Is that why they had to?
That's correct.
We're different,
Mhm.
different subsection, okay.
Sounds good. I'm glad they want to raise some money. Motion to allow? So moved.
Second?
Any more discussion? Roll call?
McMahon. Myers.
Aye.
Roa.
Aye.
Vogel.
Aye.
Kinder.
Aye. Discussion resolution authorized signatures, provision of uniform construction code, plan review, and inspection services.
Resolution of the Council of the City of Meadville authorizing signatures on an agreement under a provision of the Uniform Construction Code for plan review and inspection services between the City of Meadville and Construction Code Inspectors Incorporated.
Motion to authorize?
Motion?
All second.
Discussion.
I'll turn this over to Gary and Mike Grill to talk about.
So Mike Grill is right here, this old guy right here. Apparently Mike needs a new boat, so he's gonna increase his fees. Sorry, Mike. Mike's been with us since 2008, actually 14 years now. The last increase was 2017. Obviously times have changed, inflation is at record highs, I guess, and Mike needs more money. So essentially, what we do when we do this, when we do price fee increases, they're all reasonable to me. They make a lot of sense. He's actually waited longer than I would have to increase the fees. What we typically do then is authorize signatures on a new contract with him with a reference to the new fee schedule. Okay, so that's what's before you today. So as part of that contract is also the new fee schedule. So that's what's before you today. If you have any questions for me or Mike if you want to say anything.
Yeah, as it goes, with the other municipalities that we also administer the codes for, Meadville is about 10% lower than that, but it's because of the interactions I have with Gary, because he does a lot of the legwork. He goes out and busts people and pulls them in front of the judge and stuff, where I don't have to. It's wonderful. So, but with that said, so the increase, it is modest. It goes from 48 cents to 55 cents for a custom-built home. It's not a great increase, but, based on this time, like I said, in 14 years, we've only asked for an increase once, twice.
Does anybody have any questions?
I did. I was honestly a little confused by the two different schedules. Like, I didn't know if, the one with the no administrative fee, are these like both current? Or, then I noticed this one was dated 2017.
The no
so-
administrative fee is on, that's the current, because some municipalities ask for us to collect an administrative fee for them, because eventually they have to take care of the record of all commercial buildings and things of that nature. So there are some municipalities that we collect the fee and then it's turned over to them by the 15th of the month. And so there is no administrative fee that we're charging. But again, with Gary, it kind of works out. It's about the same thing. There's the 10% savings on that.
Okay.
Mhm. And one last thing, this is the maximum amount that I can charge the city for any project. But in many cases, when it's a multi-million-dollar project, such as like the courthouse is going to be doing, I will negotiate fees that are less than what would be indicated here, because the numbers get up so high, it's kind of ridiculous. Am I worth $30,000 to show up at, So on the larger projects, we typically will negotiate the fee with the owner or the design professional.
For what it's worth, Council, not to interrupt, but my office has occasion to have lots of clients that Mike is involved with in his business and inspecting them. And I just know based on the past 15 years or so that Mike's been doing it, our clients and businesses in town really appreciate the fact that he works to expedite the process. So when a builder's building something, he's there very timely so that they can continue development. So just to the extent that you might not deal with him as much as builders and developers and business owners deal with him, my office does, and Mike has done a great job for the past 15 years.
And they do have another employee that just lives out of town, 10 minutes out too. So that's how we're able to accommodate.
Anybody else have any questions? All right, roll call?
McKnight,
Aye.
Myers,
Aye.
Roa,
Aye.
Vogel,
Aye.
Kinder.
Aye. Okay, discuss resolution, authorized signatures, license agreement for outdoor seating, City of Meadville and Julian's.
A resolution of the Council of the City of Meadville authorizing signatures on a license agreement for outdoor seating between the City of Meadville and Pale Horse Industries Incorporated. AKA Julian's.
Right. Motion to authorize signatures. Second? Second. Discussion.
I have a couple of quick questions or comments.
Do you have a summary or something? Sorry.
The comment, if you look at the proposed zoning ordinance, active aging would be limited to hosting outdoor operations from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. And this license allows Julian's to operate 2 nights a week until 11 p.m. So I'm suggesting that we need to coordinate our zoning ordinance with licensing agreement. The other thing, we have some disparity in rates. We're charging Julian's $100, and we're charging Voodoo about $1,700, I think it is.
That's, yeah, I can speak, yeah, we did that, that's for the part that's actually city-owned property as opposed to right-of-way. So
Okay.
the right-of-way part in Mulberry Alley that they use is the same as with Julian's and the other ones that we worked with. The actual use of the parking lot where the seating area and the fencing and everything was, that's where we did that square footage analysis, and that's where the bulk of that funds was, because it was city-owned. Yep,
Thank you.
yep.
Anybody else have any questions?
DJ York is here, if anyone, this is Julian's right here.
That's Julian?
Yeah, they know this is.
Julian.
First of all, I just want to say how disappointed I am. I was told there was going to be cake. And I see no cake. No, I'm just kidding. Thank you guys for the opportunity. I think it's huge for not just Julian's, but I wish more restaurants would get on board with this. When we originally issued this idea out, it seemed like there was more momentum to have more restaurants do this. Nobody stepped up and took advantage of it. And if you guys think $100 is not fair, I'm willing to pay more to rent that property. I'll bring you to the coals, but
Should have stopped at cake.
honestly, I'm grateful for the opportunity, and you don't know how, we wouldn't have made it through the pandemic without that opportunity, and it's just grown and grown and grown. Like you said, we wanted to open till 11. What we're looking to do is, the nightlife of Meadville has died.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've been downtown on the weekend, but after 9 o'clock, there's no lights on anywhere. And what we're planning on doing is, every Friday, Saturday, we have live music. We're gonna do that in the alley. We were hoping to keep it going a little bit later, just for the, the grown-ups, the professionals. You gotta have a place to unwind. Not everybody wants to drive to Erie every weekend. And, it brings that allure of a large city to a small city. And the way we have it set up, it resembles what you would see in a large city. I don't know who to talk to. I kind of threw the idea around with Gary because I'm not sure how this would even work, but we would like to talk to somebody, if it's all of you, about potentially taking that on a permanent basis and creating some sort of a structure there. Because every year it is costly for us to, we have to build it to where it can be torn down, right? So every year we're having the same problems. We're putting the same things back up, they're breaking, we have to replace them. So there is a little bit of added fee on my end as far as the investment of getting it established and up. And then there's also the fear that it's not sturdy. So we put those wind tarps up to keep the sun off of people. 2 or 3 bad storms and that thing's flapping around, and I don't want anybody to get hurt. So we did the best we could in securing that, but I feel like if we had that on a permanent basis, we can invest the money to make it structurally sound and a lot more safe. I don't know how to explain it. And then I think it would be attractive to the city to look at as well. So something to be considered, and when Gary and I spoke about it, CJ Morganti owns both buildings on each side. So I'm not sure how that would work. He's on board with consuming that area. I don't know if that would raise taxes for him on those buildings, or, you know, this is all stuff that's way over my head. I just make food and I like cake.
I'm going to go on record to say I also like cake. I've appreciated some here tonight, so.
I think some of the desserts come out.
But,
They're all local cakes.
does anybody have any questions, at least on this here?
We'll talk next year about money.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, no, I remember that initial meeting that we had, with restaurants in the area, about opening up. I think that was during
The pandemic,
COVID, but so it was
Yeah,
in
it
person.
was-
I'm like, I'm all
So
thrown off,
we were-
but. Yeah, and I think it was you and JT Steam Table, Java Tree, you
Couple
know,
other
that had
ones,
taken
yeah,
advantage of that.
showed up. I was kind of surprised that Menino's didn't try to do something. When you go to Franklin and some of the cities that resemble our city, almost all of them have a cute little kind of outdoor, low lit, and it's a vibe, you know, that we don't have. Our city, unfortunately, when you drive down Chestnut, it's like a giant plywood with building falling down and.
Okay. Right, you are gonna pay more for it. No, it's beautiful what you've done out there. It's a vibe,
inviting,
a lot of fun.
Yeah, unfortunately, my plans get stolen every year, and I put cameras out there, but like, that's what I'm talking about, making it more structural so that it doesn't, it's not so easy to invade, I guess, and longer lasting, and I'm not just constantly throwing money out there. I don't know, when's the last time you guys bought plants at Home Depot? Marone, they're expensive.
Yes.
Yeah,
So that would mean closing off that alley, period, then, if that's what you're asking,
that's
correct?
kind of what I'm leaning towards, if you guys would help me through that or work me through it or disagree with it.
Right.
Something, I think it was maybe an offhanded comment that was brought up, but it came up in a meeting that we, like, council had it last year. Right, like seeing how well it's going for you and with, you know, Java Tree. I think that it was kind of flippantly brought up to explore Chestnut and shutting that down to just pedestrian
upper
traffic,
Chestnut.
which I think would have to mean that we keep those through, like, streets like yours that are running perpendicular, like,
Sure.
that
So-
might have to stay. So, but anyway, would
My
you, what if it were on Chestnut? Would
My
you?
original idea with
Yeah.
Andy was to close down Chestnut
Chestnut?
and have out front of us, you know, our structure, and then out front of Menino's their
Yeah.
structure, because like that's kind of what you see in some of the bigger cities. However, there is a lot of through traffic coming off the Diamond. I don't know that closing Chestnut would be the wise decision, like in retrospect,
Yeah,
so.
or to one way or something. If we explored something like that, would you be open to thinking about that
Yeah,
instead of the
absolutely.
alley that you've got,
Absolutely,
or that you are asking for?
yeah, right.
All right, well, first, let's roll call on this.
McKnight,
Aye.
Myers,
Aye.
Roa,
Aye.
Vogel,
Aye.
Kinder.
Aye. And then we'll discuss the rest of that stuff, right?
Will there be cake?
You're bringing it, right?
Thank you, DJ. Discussion resolution, authorized signatures agreement for engineering and design improvements at Kenneth A. Beers Bicentennial Park, City of Meadville, and Portal Consulting Engineers.
A resolution of the Council of the City of Meadville authorizing signatures on an agreement for engineering and design improvements at Kenneth A. Beers Bicentennial Park between the City of Meadville and Porter Consulting Engineers.
Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Okay. Discussion.
So, the city was awarded in December of last year, $105,500 from DCNR for new playground, equipment, accessibility upgrades, and additional parallel parking at Bicentennial. As part of that grant agreement, DCNR mandates that the city formally enter into an agreement with a professional engineer, and that is Porter Consulting Engineering.
Does anybody have any questions? Okay. Roll call?
McKnight,
Aye.
Myers,
Aye.
Roa,
Aye.
Vogel,
Aye.
Kinder.
Aye. Resolution award bid and authorized signatures, community development block grant, Bitmus milling and resurfacing. Huh, I'm sorry.
By 2 minutes.
Pavement.
A resolution.
Milling's right, this thing here, so.
A resolution of the Council of the City of Meadville awarding the bid in the amount of $119,225.30 to Protac Asphalt Maintenance Incorporated for bituminous milling and paving of various streets in the City of Meadville as part of the federal fiscal year 2020 Community Development Block Grant Contract.
Can I have a motion to award bid?
Motion?
Second.
Discussion?
So this is the bid from the fiscal year 2020 Cdbg application. The 119,225.30 came in right at what was projected back in 2020 for bidding. So,
Was this the only bidder?
no, there were 4 bidders. This was the lowest. By a lot.
And there are no conversions in this. This is all just repaving.
Correct.
Anybody have any other questions? Roll call.
McKnight,
Aye.
Myers,
Aye.
Roa,
Aye.
Vogel,
Aye.
Kinder.
Aye. I have here a motion to amend agenda to add resolution authorizing revision of the fiscal year 2019 Community Development Block Grant Project, scope of Heidi Park.
So this is, was not on the agenda. It came to us late this afternoon. Under the Sunshine Act, council would have to make a motion to amend the agenda to add the item and then make a motion to take action on the item.
I will move to amend the agenda to include the item.
Second?
Discussion? Roll call.
McKnight,
Aye.
Myers,
Aye.
Roa,
Aye.
Vogel,
Aye.
Kinder.
Aye.
Resolution by the Council of the City of Meadville, Crawford County, Pennsylvania, authorizing modifications of Community Development Block Grant Fiscal Year 2019 fund allocations.
Okay, now we need, another motion? Okay.
Motion?
Second.
Second?
Discussion?
So this is a modification of the 2019 CDBG contract. So originally, the city was awarded $298,504, of which $92,000 was allocated towards the East Street paving. So the bids for that, which council approved at their last meeting, the bids came in at almost $50,000 over what was projected. So in order to cover some of that cost, we are asking council to allow us to modify the contract, removing the line item for blight, which was at $28,155.28, and move that to the East Street paving project.
East Street is a conversion?
It is. That was previously approved by council.
Go ahead. Sorry, this isn't written, is this written? Do we have this in writing somewhere? Send this to us?
In what?
Just what, the agenda item that we're talking about right now.
Oh, I don't,
I can send you a copy.
Okay, it's just not in our packet, right, at memo?
Do you have, no, because it literally,
Okay.
I think it was like 3 o'clock
Okay,
this afternoon.
okay, that's fine. I'm just,
so if council does not authorize the modification, this will come out of city funds, the 50,000 to
So
do
it's-
the project, because you've already authorized the paving project in the last
sure.
meeting.
And it's 50,000 over what we budgeted,
Correct.
but there's only 28 budget for place?
Correct. So 92,000 was originally allocated in 2019 towards the East Street project, given construction costs, COVID, all of that. The bids that we opened earlier this year came in over budget by that sum of money. 28,000 was from the 2019 blight, which we are probably not going to use due to the restrictions of the use of blight in CDBG. So the remaining cost will be coming out of the stormwater, because there's stormwater work to be done on East Street as well.
Like 22.
Correct, yeah,
That was
22-ish.
Seems like a smart choice.
Does anybody have any other questions? So that's roll call, correct?
Yes. McKnight,
Aye?
Myers,
Aye.
Rova,
Aye?
Vogel,
Aye.
Kinder.
Aye. Looks like we're down to the end here, guys. Public comment on non-agenda items, do we have anything? No?
Oh, Elizabeth had a question.
Oh, yeah, it was about the advertising, or about the appointments to the different authorities and things. I have talked to several people, but one person in particular, who would love to be on that zoning board, and probably has all kinds of great capabilities to do it. And she looked up the information about it, saw the meeting time, which is in the middle of a workday. I work with this woman, we can't do anything in the middle of the workday. And, you know, it was sort of as though it was written in stone. So my comment to you guys is it possible to encourage authorities to, when you are trying to bring new people in, say that this, we can work to accommodate everybody's schedules? Because otherwise, you've just limited the pool of applicants, and there's a lot of people who are willing to serve, but can't do, you know, there's, most of the city stuff happens during the day, you know. I'm really grateful that this is going to be things. But anyway, just put it out there, because I think you might be missing out on people.
Why not?
Thank you.
Same with the authority, the same person looked at both. The Market House was the other one.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
And we love the outdoor seating. It is transforming Meadville. So good.
Okay.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Council member statements. Jim?
Thank you, everybody, for coming. It's been a rather lengthy meeting, but we got a lot accomplished. Before our next meeting, it was televised meeting, it'll be Passover and Easter, so happy Easter and Yom Tov.
Gretchen?
I don't have any comments.
Mayor?
Yeah, same to everyone. Happy Easter. All good to see you back. Surgery went well. Good, good, good. And yeah, I'd like to thank everyone for coming.
Yeah, Easter Bunny's coming, right? Is that this
Saturday,
Saturday?
1 PM.
Nice. So look for the Easter Bunny on the fire truck. I think it's fun. Like I said earlier, thanks for adding the subcommittee report section to the agenda. And our study session, except for the first 10 minutes, will be we'll dive into the climate action plan. So just a reminder to council to read that, and for folks to tune in either live to that noon on April 13th. It's a meeting during the day, but the fact that it streams, you can watch it later, and then come to the regularly scheduled council meetings in the evening to voice public comment on that, or submit a communication to council, send us a letter, an email with your thoughts, and I look forward to that process. So just a reminder that we should take a look at the action plan before then. That's it. That's it for me.
All right. Again, I'd like to thank everybody for coming, reiterate our office hours, and everybody is more than welcome to come in and speak to us, to again say that good work is being done here. Our city staff is doing big things, and we're trying to move things along and really better Meadville. As far as the authorities and boards, I just want to make sure everybody understands that those are voluntary, right? And people are taking their time, their precious time, again, working to move Meadville forward. So I just want to thank everybody on those boards, and everybody willing to put the work in, right, to make Meadville better. The restaurants, the business owners, the people who live here, and people who work here, and people who spend their money here, right? So I want to thank everybody for that. I want everybody to enjoy their families during the holidays, and I'm super excited for the Easter Bunny, and he's a close personal friend of mine, so I'm special that way. And again, thanks everybody for coming. Well done.
Just one question. Is it the 21st
At 5:30
at 5:30 here?
is the hearing
For the Allegheny?
yeah,
Any college life.
Okay, so-
is here. In this room, in this very room. Okay, motion to adjourn.
To executive session to discuss real estate.
Yes, and personnel. Yes.
Motion.
Second.
The CD,
Okay, discussion? Roll call.
McKnight?
Aye.
Myers?
Aye.
Roa?
Aye.
Vogel?
Aye.
Kinder?
Aye. Ooh, that was a lot.